Hello and welcome. I am Lian Buan and this is Rappler Talk. 2021 Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Ressa has just been acquitted of 4 counts of tax violations stemming from Rappler's Philippine Depositary Receipts or PDR. PDR has been a buzzword in media for the last 4 years. It is the reason why the Securities and Exchange Commission is pursuing the closure of Rappler as a company, and it was cited as one of the reasons why the House of Representatives under former President Rodrigo Duterte took off the air of the biggest TV network, ABS-CBN.
At the end of the day, truth and justice will prevail, especially that these cases have implications not only on the freedom of the press, but on business in general. Okay? We do need investments here in the country to help the country emerge from the pandemic. Okay? And a contrary decision today would have really had negative implications not only on the freedom of the press, but on the economy.
We just heard Attorney Francis Lim, the lead counsel of Rappler and Maria Ressa for the tax cases, the senior legal counsel of Acro Law and former president of the Philippine Stock Exchange. Thank you so much, Attorney Lim, for your time.
Thank you, Lian. How's London?
Oh, it's cold. It's winter. So we go to the PDR, Attorney Lim. It's been often asked, ano ba yung PDR for every one of us, the rest of us mortals who do not understand the laymanized versions of PDR?
PDR, as the name implies, is a receipt. No? It's called PDR dahil Philippine Depositary Receipts. No? May, for example, American Depositary Receipts, may Global Depositary Receipts. No? So it's a document which gives the holder the right to subscribe to shares of stock of a company. It's not the same as shares of stock because shares of stock vest ownership of the company to the holder or to the shareholder. But PDR, wala yan, Lian. No? Parang ano lang eh. The way I would liken it is how it was described. No? Parang pumunta ka sa karerahan, okay, you go to a horse racing, then you buy a horse race ticket. No? If the horse wins that you bet on, then you are entitled to part of the winnings, no? But you are not the owner of the horse, di ba? Ganun rin ang PDR, no? Kung may income yung shares of stock which constitute the underlying asset for the PDR, then the company that issued the shares of stock will declare dividends to the issuer of the PDR. In this case, ang operating company dito, Rappler Inc. Ang PDR issuer is Rappler Holdings Inc. Rappler Holdings Inc. owns shares of stock in Rappler Inc. And against those shares of stock, nag-issue ang Rappler Holdings Inc. ng what is called receipts or depositary receipts, no? Which gives the holders of the depositary receipts, BDR and NBN in this case, the right to convert the receipts later on to ownership of Rappler. No? Of course, subject to compliance with laws. No? If they cannot, because of constitutional limitations, they cannot convert. They will not be able to convert. No? And they can sell the PDRs to, for example, a Filipino who may later on convert the PDR into shares of stock of Rappler Inc.
I'll go to that later. But you just mentioned what I was about to ask next. I'm sure yung mga taong makakabasa nung decision ng CTA will read that the PDR gives the holder the right to buy the underlying share. What is an underlying share? How will that work in the context of Rappler Holdings and Rappler Inc.?
In the context of Rappler Holdings and Rappler Inc., the shareholder is Rappler Holdings Inc. Okay, it owns shares in Rappler Inc. Okay, the holder of the PDRs can have the right to convert the PDR that they're holding into shares of stock of Rappler Inc. So parang ano yan eh, parang asset-backed securities, the way I describe it, that it's quite technical, no? It's asset-backed because yung PDR is backed up by the value of the shares of stock.
Attorney Lim, is
So
PDR a very common investment tool for both media and non-media? Like how common is it in business?
very common. No? As you said, I used to be the president of the stock exchange. Marami akong, in fact, under my watch, GMA Holdings listed its PDRs, no, which uh, GMA, the TV network, PLDT, Globe, Telecom, marami, and some of them even listed their in their depository receipts in the New York Stock Exchange. For example, I think PLDT, Globe Telecom, marami, and those are ano no, those are not media companies. I don't know with in the case of JMA Holdings and uh,
ABS.
ABS-CBN if they listed their receipts in offshore or outside the Philippines. Very common yan.
As you said nga, attorney, kanina, the holder of the PDR has the right to buy an underlying share compliant to the constitution and the law. But in the case
Yes.
of a company like Rappler, 100% di ba dapat? So how then can Omidyar and North-based media benefit from holding a PDR kung hindi rin naman nila ma-exercise yung right to buy an underlying share?
Okay, the issuer of the depository receipt is RHC or Rappler Holdings Inc., di ba? Which in turn owns shares of stock in Rappler Inc., di ba? So if Rappler Inc. Declares dividends to Rappler Holdings as shareholder, then may pera ang Rappler Holdings, di ba? Flowing from the dividends of Rappler Inc. Now, the holders of Rappler Holdings PDRs will be entitled to a part of the shares, no, uh, of the dividends, no, that Rappler Inc. Declares in favor of Rappler Holdings. So may income na yung ano, no, may income na yung Rappler Holdings, and as holders of the PDRs of issued by Rappler Holdings Inc., i-share naman ng ano, ng Rappler Holdings to the PDR holders. But the PDR holders do not earn any dividends from Rappler Inc. Okay? Parang ano yan eh, parang bonds yan. You know what a commercial paper is, a bond is, no, di ba? The holder of the bond is entitled to be paid. But the holder of the bond is not really the shareholder of even the issuer in this case. For example, let's assume that Raptor Holdings, instead of issuing a PDR, issued a bond, di ba? So, may interest yan. Parang ganun lang yan, no? Kung may income ang ano, ang Raptor Holdings Inc., then may inaasahan ang holders ng PDRs issued by PDR Holdings, some income flowing from what Rappler Holdings received from Rappler Inc.
Let's try
Medyo ano, mas okay.
Yes,
Go
yes.
ahead.
Let's try to simplify it even further. You said after the verdict at the CTA that this is good for the economy, for job generation. Explain that. Why is it good for a simple Filipino, an ordinary Filipino?
It's good because, for example, no, there would be no uh, ABS-CBN, there would be no GMA, okay? Because of the constitutional limitations kung wala silang pera, di ba? So, uh, their holding company like Raptor Inc. Is formed to own shares of stock of, let's say, ABS, GMA, even PLDT, which raises capital on its own and invest it in the operating companies. In this case, Rappler Inc., Globe, PLDT, and so on and so forth. So it's good for the economy because, well, businesses are engines of the economy. Without businesses, walang kukunti ang taxation, walang employers, okay? Walang, let's say, in the case of Rappler Inc., there would be no media company. So, and on the whole, it's very good. In fact, it's a very, very good investment instrument because by investing in PDR or in the depository receipt, you're not only investing for your own sake, but in effect uh, helping the company, which in turn helps run the economy or fund the economy.
Let's just
For
explain.
example, kung
Go
walang
ahead.
Rappler Inc., di ba? Ah,
Go ahead.
reporter ka ng Rappler Inc., baka wala kang trabaho. God forbid, di ba? Ah, walang walang trabaho yung mga crew nyo, walang trabaho yung yung reporters nyo, and so on and so forth, di ba? And the office staff. So
Yeah.
it creates jobs, no? In turn, who will in turn support the other parts of the economy, like restaurants. They can send their children to school. They can buy cars, which in turn creates what do you call this, income tax for the government to collect. And you know what happens when the government is able to collect taxes, the infrastructure, building bridges, roads, and so on and so forth. It's like any other business supporting the
Yeah.
government by way of paying taxes.
You said kanina nga, attorney, PDRs are very common even in non-media companies and large
Non-media
companies
companies, yes.
and large companies that give a lot of jobs to people. Can you tell us yung mood ng business community when PDRs started to get scrutinized like this, starting with Rappler, and then there was this very long Senate and House hearing on ABS-CBN's PDRs? Were they spooked? Natakot ba sila na, oh my God, PDR has become this?
At that time, Lian, I was the president of the Management Association of the Philippines. Okay. And if I recall it correctly, we issued a statement expressing deep concern, no, over the congressional investigation over ABS-CBN. Because as you said earlier, PDRs was one of the issues that Congress took against ABS Holdings, and the rest is history. Kinolos daw nila yung ABS Holdings. So what happened there? Maraming na-displaced, di ba? Na employees, di ba?
Do you think that it has had an effect on investors wanting to have a PDR on Philippine companies?
I know for a fact na may effect, no. Of course, PDRs, because of cases like ABS-CBN, would be a less attractive investment instrument,
Right.
especially for nationalized entities like telcos and so telcos and media companies.
Let's zero in again on Rappler. The tax cases against Maria and Rappler involved both PDR holders. It's Omidyar and North Base Media. And the CTA already made it clear in their decision that the PDRs do not pave the way for either Omidyar or North Base Media to acquiring or owning a share of stock with Rappler. So let us remind the viewers again, ano ba yung issue ng SEC with Omidyar? Why they want to revoke the license of Rappler?
Because by issuing PDRs raw, Rappler Inc. violated the constitutional limitation, which basically says that the ownership and management of media shall be owned exclusively by Filipinos or by corporations solely owned by Filipinos. Ang theory ng SEC, because of by control, by issuing those PDRs, and therefore in violation raw ng Constitution. So, and I was so surprised because in other cases, the SEC approved PDRs, for example, GMA Holdings, the PLDT, Globe Telecom, and so on and so forth, and even Rappler, di ba? Na it went through the through the SEC. So it was a surprise move for us.
Why was Omidyar singled out by the SEC whereas dalawa naman yung PDR holders ng Rappler?
Because meron provision there which basically says that before RI or Rappler Inc. Changes its articles of incorporation, RHC or Rappler Holdings Inc. shall endeavor to get the consent of the PDR holders. Control raw yun, which is different. No? Ang prohibition is ownership and management. So ang issue talaga, did the PDR issued by Rappler Holdings Inc. give ownership to Omidyar? Did it give management to Omidyar? If no, walang violation of constitutional provision, because the very explicit yung constitutional provision which basically says it's the ownership and management that is prohibited. Matagal ka ng reporter, Ian, no? Lian, did you ever see Omidyar interfere in the management of Rappler Inc.?
I never
Did
saw a
you, okay,
foreigner.
did you ever see the Omidyar Inc. Attend stockholders meeting?
I've
Huh?
never
Did
seen
you
them.
ever see Omidyar uh, elect the board of directors? In fact, the board of directors are all Filipinos, di ba?
Yes.
Management staff are all Filipinos. Reporters are all Filipinos. So anong issue doon?
Sir, do you think, I know there are two separately distinct case, but would the CTA saying, yung CTA saying that there's no, it doesn't pave the way for any Omidyar North-based media owning shares of stock ever of Rappler, would you invoke that CTA decision in the SEC case, which I understand is again in the Court of Appeals?
You know, because because it's not the Supreme Court, yung decision ng CTA does not have what we call presidential value, no? But it has persuasive value if the upper courts, no, the Supreme Court especially, will will look at the decision and makikita nila na well-reasoned and well-based yung reasoning ng Court of Tax Appeals, no. In that regard, I want to point out that the CTA cited no less than circulars of the BIR and even the Philippine Stock Exchange and even the Securities Regulation Code. Now, Securities Regulation Code. If you look at the law, and I teach Securities Regulation Code in the Ateneo Law School, it distinguishes between shares of stock and derivatives like options and warrants. And and uh, depository receipts are considered derivatives because they derive their value from the underlying shares. So even under the law, which the Supreme Court, I'm sure, will definitely consider, there is a distinction between a depository receipt uh, or investment contracts and shares of stock. So I was reading, no, I read the Court of Tax Appeals decision twice or thrice, and it was well reasoned out and it was well based. So I would not be surprised, although it's not binding on the Supreme Court, okay, that the Supreme Court will be persuaded by the reasoning of the Court of Tax Appeals.
Attorney, you've been doing this for a long, long time. You've been president of these many organizations. You know this very well. How was it handling a tax case against the backdrop of a free press? Because we've been told that this seems to be a global trend. Yung newspaper ng co-winner ni Maria, si Dimitri Muratov, was also closed down because of corporate laws. And sa Hong Kong, yung Apple Daily ni Jimmy Lai, and he was charged and jailed, also using corporate laws. So they said there's a global trend of using confusing corporate and tax laws to stifle free press. How was it for you, a veteran in business and tax, defending a case like this na free press yung implication?
Now, I just have to be clear to be fair to our tax department. No? It was them that really did the hard um, the work. No, as I said a while ago, I was just the overall supervising partner. In fact, although I was the one who took in, no, who got Rappler into the firm, I have several teams. No? My teams kami sa litigation, okay, which is the SEC case, sa anti-dummy case. May teams kami sa tax case, and it was the tax team that handled this case. No? Yung nitty-gritty ng they did what we call the heavy lifting. No? Now, you made a good point. Yung using corporate law, no, to go against companies using okay. I think no less than Maria has said that this is weaponizing the law, okay, because the law can be interpreted in many ways. And once we make use of the law, no, as a weapon against critics of the media, delikado yan. And you yourself said na yung kay Dimitrov na close down, and I hope that our government agencies will take into account this one. Although laws can be interpreted depending on where you're coming from, you have to be very responsible naman. And that's the reason why we have a court system, what we call check and balance. Kasi kung nag-abuse yung executive branch, as apparently what's happened in this case, then the judicial system, in this particular case, represented by the Court of Islam, can check the abuses. Imagine mo when you know, yung PDR is really a capital raising mechanism, no? You raise capital, di ba? Ang ginawa ng BIR, with due respect to my friends there, okay, uh, when you raise capital raw, the difference between the value of the PDRs, let's say 10 pesos, okay, and the par value of the shares, yung 9 pesos, let's say the par value of the shares is 1 peso, yung 9 pesos raw, taxable income. And may distinction ng capital raising sa purchase and sale of securities. No? Here, Rappler Holdings did not sell its shares to Omidyar or to NBN. What it sold was the were the PDRs that it issued. The ownership of the shares of stock in Rappler Inc. remained with Rappler Holdings Inc. There was no sale of the shares of stock to either entities, to either NBN or to Omidyar. Okay? So, again, technical na naman ito.
Yeah.
What happened in the issuance of the what we call primary issuance? It was issued by the issuer itself, Rappler Holdings Inc. Hindi yung secondary sale ng shares of stock which Rappler Holdings Inc. earlier subscribed in Rappler Inc. So there was no purchase, subscription and sale or purchase of sale of the underlying shares of stock. The shares of stock remain the properties of Rappler Holdings Inc. No? Ngayon, sinasabi nila, pareho lang yan because of this and that. No? That's what we call weaponizing the law. And I think it's a very bad precedent for business. Baka kung ako yung negosyante, baka if I do something, baka kung magalit yung future administration sa akin, isasara ako. Imagine mo yung chilling effect yan.
So the chilling effect has transcended journalists to businessmen, which is will have a very negative impact on our economy, as you said. Attorney, how is it different from any of your regular cases, knowing that it is so highly politicized that no less than the president said from the podium at Batasan that Rappler, you're 100% foreign owned. So it came from Malacanang itself, and it's so highly politicized. How has it been different than any other cases you've handled?
You know, Lian, I've been in practice since 1981, no? And this is the first time na I've seen a case like this, where cases were started to be filed against the company that was mentioned, no? Okay, and no less than the president, as you correctly said, mentioned or condemned Rappler, I think Philippine Daily Inquirer, ABS, in a State of the Nation address. So what happened to us, di ba? Right after that, the State of the Nation address, was it in 2017 or 2016?
2018.
2018, no? A branch of cases, no? Anti-dummy, revocation of license of Rappler, of the Rappler companies, Rappler Inc. and Rappler Holdings. Okay, security regulation violation. So yun na file, no? And there, and including the cyber libel case against Maria and Rappler. So that's why we really need an independent judiciary to check the potential abuses that future administrations may do. That's why in our constitutional system might check and balance yan and that's the essence of a democracy. Na? Kung okay, you're one department, for example, the legislative department, enact laws that are, for example, unconstitutional. You have a separate department, the judiciary, which says, hindi nyo pwede gawin. You have the power, but hindi yung power, the way you exercise your power by enacting a law that is clearly a violation of the Constitution, that particular law that you enacted cannot be implemented because it is unconstitutional. And that's the job of the judiciary. No? Ganun din sa executive branch, okay? They have the power to prosecute and to file cases against against companies, against person, which the legislative branch does not have. If they have the executive branch has that power, if there's an abuse of power, then another department, the judiciary, comes to the rescue of who may have been aggrieved by the filing of this case. And this is exactly what happened here. Na-file lang kayo ng tax cases, totally baseless, no? In fact, no less than the Court of Tax Appeal said that, then judiciary, represented here by the Court of Tax Appeals, check that abuse of power by the executive branch. So, kaya importante yung democracy, and that's where press freedom would come in, because without an independent press, without a courageous press, okay, abuses such as this will not be um, will not be publicized, and and because it's kept under wraps, because there's no independent press, then abuses will continue.
All
Yung
right.
chilling effect ng mga abuses, alam mo, then we will have a society governed not by the rule of law, but by I don't know. I don't want to describe it. Yan.
Thank you so much, Attorney Lim. Here's to an independent press, an independent judiciary, and to better days. Thank you so much. That was Attorney Francis Lim, the lead counsel of Rappler and Maria Ressa in the PDR and tax cases. This has been Lian Buan. Thank you for watching Rappler Talk.